We're doing something a little bit different today. Let's talk about some Star Wars board games. Hello there, welcome back to the channel. I am Grand Moff Tony. Now, I've always tried to be very open and honest on this channel about my relationship with console gaming, and that's that I don't really have one. I kind of loosely retired back in 2017 during the whole loot box fiasco. I didn't like the direction that gaming was heading, so I pulled out, and of course I will come out of retirement every time there's a new Star Wars game, and especially if it's one that's like got some great canon material going on in there. Yeah, I'll definitely play that. Like the Jedi games are great for that kind of thing, and yeah, even Battlefront adds some important stuff to the canon here and there. But for the most part, I don't really get involved in console gaming the way I used to, and what I have supplemented that with is a return to more traditional board games. I've always been a massive fan of incredibly elaborate board games, and back when I was a kid, I actually used to really enjoy designing board games. They always ended up being cheap Monopoly knockoffs, but hey, I was like 8 or 9. Don't yell at me. Fortunately for me, there are a great number of incredibly enjoyable Star Wars games that I have discovered over the years since I kind of pulled back from console gaming. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to sit here and go over a few of these games that I've really enjoyed over the last couple of years, and hey, you know what? I am working on a game room in the basement right now, which would be the perfect studio for filming board game content if that's something that my viewers are interested in seeing. It's something I've always wanted to do. I really enjoy A, talking about board games, and B, playing board games, so if it's Star Wars, and this is kind of a Star Wars-y channel, I feel like that would really fit. So you can think of this as the kind of random, off-the-cuff, off-topic, wildcard video for the month. We're going to sit here, we're going to talk about some Star Wars board games, and I'm going to tell you what I really enjoy about them. I know some of my eagle-eyed viewers have already spotted a couple of miniatures in my display back here, so yeah, I'm very happy to finally talk about this, so let's get into it. First up, I wanted to talk about Star Wars Legion. Now, this is a tabletop war game, very much in the vein of Warhammer 40k, which I was a major sucker for back in the day. I spent a lot of money on Warhammer when I was younger, and the reason I really got into 40k is because there wasn't a Star Wars version of that kind of game out on the market yet. So yeah, I played with Space Marines and Orcs and Necrons, and I kind of imagined that I was really playing in the Star Wars universe. So Legion really ticked that box for me, getting a tabletop war game set in the Star Wars universe. Something I really love about this game is the gameplay. It's the game mechanics of the whole thing. It plays so much like I wished 40k played back in the day, because 40k you would spend ages getting everything set up and getting all your codexes and your rules laid out, and then you'd sit there and realize, wow, it's been like an hour already and I haven't even played the first turn yet. Legion has a pretty complex setup, but all of the information that you need to know to play the game is either on the quick reference sheet with the rulebook or it's printed on the character cards, and that is just life-changing when it comes to this kind of game, because you can really jump in and you don't have to sit there and wait for someone to look up a rule or what a rule means, because it's right there on the card. And to continue the 40k comparison, obviously 40k you use like rulers, and you measure out how far characters can move and how far they can see and how far they can shoot. Legion has a very unique measurement system that just feels more fun. Now don't get me wrong, it's exactly the same. You're still measuring distances, but it feels different because you've got movement tools rather than just a tape measure. One of the major draws for this game for me was the fantastically detailed miniatures that you play with. I really enjoy assembling and painting small-scale miniatures. I find it incredibly fun, incredibly satisfying, and Legion has a plethora of great character miniatures. It's pretty versatile. There's no board per se. You can just really set up a bunch of obstacles anywhere you have a decently sized flat surface and just go at it. It's really fun. With that being said, when I'm watching channels like Play on Tabletop using these massive and intricately designed battlefields, yeah, a little bit of me wants to build something awesome like that and just play a great game on it, because it looks so fantastic. The miniatures are absolutely great. The rules are surprisingly easy to pick up for a tabletop war game. I don't know, man, Legion just has it all. It's an easy place to start when you're talking about tabletop Star Wars games, because it's just the main one. It's the main flagship one. I specifically play the Clone Wars era. I have a Separatist army and a Republic army. They're quite small at the moment because I'm still pretty new to the game. I wanted to make sure that I actually really enjoy it before I put too much money into it, because that was a mistake I made with 40k back in the day. I bought so many miniatures and invested in so many armies before I actually sat down and played a game. So, lesson learned, I'm an adult now. I can make more responsible decisions, or I can continue to buy war games. Legion is fantastic. And that feels like a pretty natural transition to move on to talk about Imperial Assault. Now, this was actually a game that I played before Legion, and for the longest time, I really thought that was enough for me. I thought Imperial Assault was the only tabletop-style game that I needed, because it's essentially a board game version of Legion. Rather than measuring distances with measuring tools and moving around an open battlefield, Imperial Assault is more small-scale. It's more skirmish size, and it's played out on a board that you assemble from individual tiles, so you can build your own unique maps for your own unique needs. Once again, like Legion, the character cards have all the information that you need on them. They give you everything you need to know about the character, their abilities, their weapons. Everyone has got like movement points, and that's how you handle movement. You just move from space to space, rather than moving across a battlefield. Now, that distinction, unfortunately, is what killed the game, because Hasbro has an exclusive right to all Star Wars board games. When this game was being made by Fantasy Flight, they tried to make the argument that it was a tabletop game, like Legion would be one day. However, with the whole moving from space to space, apparently that is the legal description of a board game, so that's what killed this game. But it's still really, really fun, even if it is kind of a dead game. In fact, if I am being perfectly honest with myself, I still kind of prefer the gameplay of Imperial Assault to Legion itself. I kind of prefer knowing, like looking at a board, how many spaces away from a target I am and whether or not I can hit them, because they handle range very differently to how Legion does. It's kind of like, if you can see the other model, you can always take a shot at it, but you might not necessarily hit it, but you might. And you get accuracy points, and you roll for hitting the target rather than just like, well, he's obviously out of range, I can't get him. And obviously the smaller scale makes it much more engaging, whereas Legion, you might find turns 1 and 2 are kind of monotonous because everyone's so far away from each other, you can't see each other, you can't shoot each other. Legion is usually a case of you turn the corner on your first turn, and on your second turn, there's a guy there that you can shoot at. And once again, of course, we have to talk about the miniatures, because obviously I really like them. I'm very proud of my Legion collection, and that's why I openly display them on my shelf. It also makes it very easy for me to just grab a handful of them and play a quick skirmish. Now, these miniatures are ever so slightly smaller than Legion. Now, I use a number of Legion miniatures in my Imperial Assault because sometimes the Legion miniature is just better. Darth Vader is a brilliant example. As much as I love the core game and I love how that original miniature looks, the Legion miniature of Vader is much, much better, which kind of leads me on to my next point. This is where I play Galactic Civil War era stuff. I didn't want to play the same era in 2 different games. So I have Legion for the Clone Wars, and I have Imperial Assault for the Galactic Civil War, which basically means I'm not going out and having to monotonously repaint the same miniatures over and over again. I just painted a whole bunch of Stormtrooper miniatures for my Imperial Assault game. I don't want to then go out and buy a Legion Empire army and then have to paint a million more Stormtroopers. It just helps keep gameplay more diverse for me. Now, with that being said, with Imperial Assault being kind of a dead game that's been cancelled and a number of characters still missing from the gameplay, I have gone out of my way and bought some custom miniatures to kind of continue expanding the game. Imperial Assault has an incredibly loyal fan base, and it has a continuity project that has kind of continued to release new cards and new updates to the game to keep it going for people who still play. And I love that. I don't love it when they mess with the elements of the original game. Like, if an official character card exists from the game, I don't play by the new rules. I play by the original rules. And I will sit here and I will come up with new characters. There's a custom Grand Moff Tarkin figure up there that I play with. I used Grand Admiral Thrawn as a base, I tweaked the abilities, and it plays really, really well. It's a really good game, I really enjoy it. Imperial Assault is an absolute banger. And really, between the two games, Imperial Assault and Legion, that's why I haven't really gotten into Shatterpoint. Because it feels very much the same. It feels very similar to how Imperial Assault and Legion play. I think, actually, if you mash Imperial Assault and Legion together, I'm pretty sure you get something like Shatterpoint. Now, am I a bit bummed that the miniatures for Shatterpoint are bigger and better than the Legion miniatures? Yeah, sure. Do I wish it had come out first? Maybe. Maybe I would have played that instead. But you know what is compatible with my two games? The terrain. So Shatterpoint, that can be the terrain, but I will play the gameplay for these two games. Moving on, let's talk about Star Wars Armada for a minute. Now, I am a massive fan of space battles, and when I was looking for a board game to properly capture that, I did try X-Wing for a while, but it really wasn't for me. I'm not a dogfight player. Like, even back when I was playing, like, Battlefront and stuff, I didn't really like the space battle side of it because you ultimately end up with two ships flying in circles until one gets a clean shot at the other. And that's not really fun to me. You know what is fun to me? Is fleet battles. Capital ship scale fleet combat. Now that is fun. I have a lot of fun playing with that. The great thing about this game is that the miniatures come assembled, they come painted. I mean, you can always add some stuff if you like. Like, I've always kind of looked at the fighter squadrons and thought, this could use a little something. But for the actual ships themselves, they look incredible. I love the art style of this game, and the gameplay plays so smoothly. Like, the way that it interprets, like, how to command larger ships by having to plan your moves, like, several turns in advance. So good. So immersive. Like, of course, it's gonna take a lot more work to tell a larger capital ship what you want it to do. Orders take time to transmit and whatnot, and Armada captures that absolutely perfectly. With that being said, the gameplay was pretty easy to pick up, like planning your moves and moving your ships, and each turn is basically a repeating cycle of the same couple of phases, and that makes it very easy to play. So I'm sure with the previous two games you're wondering, which era do I play? Well, I play Galactic Civil War with this for one very simple reason. I wanted to get the Chimera. The Chimera was actually my first Armada miniature, and I'm pretty sure at the time it wasn't supposed to lead into playing Armada. It was just supposed to be a cool display piece like my Ghost was for X-Wing, but I couldn't resist. I had to get involved in this game because it looks so much fun, and it is so much fun. I also owe a very small percentage of my overall college grade to this game because I had to give a presentation and it had to be instructional, so I taught my whole class how to play Star Wars Armada. I showed them how to play a damage step and how to do an attack phase. It was really fun, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, if you're not like me and you don't really enjoy having to put miniatures together and then paint them to make them look good, this might be a game for you because they're already done. It's ready to go as soon as you take it out of the box. It's a fantastic game which is surprisingly easy to pick up. Armada is just fantastic. So this is a video about board games, and so far we've talked about 3 essentially tabletop style games. Let's get into the board games themselves. Kind of a new game that I've been playing recently is the Clone Wars Pandemic style game. Now this is brilliant. I love Pandemic, it's so much fun, and it's adapted into the Clone Wars in a really interesting way. So basically, where in Pandemic you're fighting a spreading virus, in the Clone Wars you're fighting the spread of the Separatist forces. Essentially, the droids are the virus viruses. The blockades are the outbreaks, and it's so overwhelming very, very quickly. I love games where it says on the box that there's like an estimated playtime, and what it means by that is the game's gonna kick your ass in this amount of time. You've got that amount of time to beat it, or you're going to lose. I love those kinds of games, and this Clone Wars Pandemic game is definitely one of them. We've played it several times, and as yet we have not beaten it. We have lost every single time. Something that this game does very, very well is it creates a very unique game experience based on what villain you want to go up against. You can go up against Grievous, you can go up against Ventress, you can go up against Dooku, and go up against all three of them at the same time. It is really, really immersive, and each villain comes with their own kind of unique requirements to beat them, and each planet has like missions that you have to complete. I really, really enjoy it. And the whole time this is going on, the Clone Wars are spiraling out of control, the Separatist armies are spreading across the galaxy, gets out of hand so fast, but it is so much fun. You can literally be like on top of the world at the end of the round, but as soon as those invasion cards start turning over, it turns your whole game upside down. Like, you think you've got a plan, but you can't do your plan because you have to get 6 planets that way to stop that planet from being blockaded. It's incredibly fun. Pandemic has translated into the Star Wars universe so well, and this really captures the chaos of the Clone Wars in such an immersive way. Each character that you choose comes with a special ability, so obviously the more players you have, the more special abilities you've got to play with. But if you're playing a slightly smaller game, you've got to be really careful who you choose. Like, do you want to go in with Anakin with his incredibly powerful ability, or would you rather go with Kenobi and his more defensive play style? Really, the game does everything it can to stop you from completing your missions. It gives you so much stuff to distract you and keep you running around the galaxy, so you don't have the time to really figure out how to beat it, and then before you know it, it's turned around and kicked you in the butt. It's my favorite kind of game. I absolutely love this one. Star Wars trivia games. Now, as a self-confessed Star Wars nerd, yeah, these are my bread and butter. I absolutely love a good trivia game. We've got so many of them, whether it is literally Star Wars Trivial Pursuit or whether it's a more dynamic trivia-style game. Hell, I even build Star Wars Kahoots in my free time, just for a laugh, just to keep my memory going and keep all this useless information jostling around in there. Yeah, I absolutely love trivia games. We have a number of these games, like whether they are like specific movie versions like Phantom Menace Trivial Pursuit, or whether it's something more general. I think we picked up like the ultimate Star Wars trivia game the last time we were in London. So yeah, these kinds of games are a lot of fun for a nerd like me. They may not seem like a tremendous amount of fun, but they are to me. It's always kind of fun to see the looks on people's faces when you surprise them with just how much you know about these movies and these shows. Like, the tiny little details. It's incredibly enjoyable, and maybe that's just me, but I really enjoy it. I don't often get people fighting over wanting to be on my team. I was always the last person picked for everything in school, but I'm always the first person picked when we're putting teams together for a trivia game. And with that being said, I am not undefeated. I have been defeated twice by my wife. And the 2 things that she beat me on, I will never get wrong again. Be absolutely sure of that. These are just a lot of fun. It's a very generic style game. If you've played any kind of Trivial Pursuit, you've really played all of them. But these ones I find particularly fun because it's like a whole trivia game that's built around my specialist subject. It's very, very validating. Star Wars Villainous is kind of a new one that I've been getting into. If you're familiar with the Villainous games, you take on the role of various different bad guys, and you've all got nefarious schemes that you're trying to complete, and part of the fun is trying to sabotage your fellow villains. Well, when they came out with the Star Wars version, you better believe that that was going straight on my Christmas list. This game is brilliant. I really, really enjoy it. It's so well designed. It plays so thematically based on which characters you choose to play as. I absolutely love the stylistic design of both the artwork and the actual character pieces themselves that you move around the board. It's just a great game. I've always thought the mechanics of this game were incredibly fun. Seeing it translated over to Star Wars just made me want it even more. I've got several different expansions for Villainous, not just including the Star Wars one, and now they've released an expansion for the Star Wars one with like Cad Bane and Boba Fett in it. You better believe I'm going out and getting that. If I had to pick a favourite, I like playing as General Grievous. He's got a very straightforward objective. You just have to defeat 8 Jedi and claim 8 lightsabers, but somehow every time I'm playing, people find ways to trip me up on it, like whether it's sticking an incredibly overpowered Jedi on my board or finding ways to steal my lightsabers after I've claimed them. It just makes for an incredibly fun game. It's still a pretty new game to the collection, but it's already one that we really, really enjoy playing. Star Wars Villainous is a lot of fun. And of course, on top of these incredibly niche-style games, we also do indulge in a few more basic-level games, like I have a copy of the Phantom Menace Monopoly. I also have a copy of the Clone Wars Risk, because I am a massive fan of Risk. I love that kind of world domination-style gameplay, and the way that the Clone Wars one works is so much fun. You play as either the Separatists or the Republic, and pretty much at any time, Order 66 can go off and completely change what the map looks like. It's ingenious. I think I did have a copy of the Galactic Civil War Risk as well, where if you were playing as the Empire, you could ultimately build the Death Star and start going around blowing up planets. Don't know what happened to that. I think it got left behind at some point on one of my various moves, and I'm very bummed about that because I did enjoy it. And the Clone Wars version has the added variant of trying to find Darth Sidious. Like, you have these separatist bases that you set up at the start of the game, and if the Republic conquers one of those planets, they get to reveal the Separatist leader, and if it's Darth Sidious, they just win. They just win right like that. So it effectively becomes a war game built into a race, because the Separatists are trying to get to Order 66, and the Republic are trying to find Sidious before it happens. It's really, really good. As, like, branded versions of Risk go, this is one of the best ones I've ever played. We also have the Saga edition of Star Wars Seen It, which is a brilliant game if anyone's ever played it. Not only is it kind of like a trivia game, so it kind of plays into what I was talking about earlier, but you've got that added element of the DVD disc. You've got those multimedia questions, which sometimes that's what it comes down to. It comes down to one of these really bizarre questions, or the way the questions are presented, whether it's identifying a quote that's incredibly garbled and trying to get to it first, or trying to unravel an image that's slowly decoding, and again, trying to be the first one who gets it. Really, really great game. I really enjoy it. It plays into my love of trivia, and it does it in a very unique way. We also recently picked up a game called something like Star Wars Unlock It. We haven't played it yet, but I am very, very interested to see how it goes. So these are essentially Star Wars versions of generic games that already exist. Now, I don't really class them in the same level as some of the other games that we play, because these are kind of entry-level board games, but they're still incredibly fun. So if you've got someone that's coming to hang out and you want to play a game, but you don't want to get out something that's maybe too involved, you want something that's a little more entry-level, yeah, these games will really fill your boots. I really enjoy these kinds of games. So there you have it. That was basically a look round the kind of Star Wars board games that I have in my collection. We play a lot of board games in our house because, as I say, we don't really do console gaming anymore. We like to focus on these. Most of my original board game collection that I've kind of built on since moving to the States came from watching Will Wheaton's old tabletop show that he used to do on YouTube. I was a massive fan of that series. I really enjoyed it, and that's kind of what inspired me to want to make board game content on YouTube. And hopefully one day I can, because because it's something I really, really enjoy, and it's something I think will do really, really well. So as long as I haven't pigeonholed myself too badly, maybe one day when the game room's completed and we've got a really effective gaming studio, yeah, we can get around to playing some of these games on the channel. I would think it would be fantastic fun. And of course, you know what will move that along is viewer demand. If that's the kind of thing that you'd like to see us do in the future, after all, this isn't just a Star Wars toy and collecting channel, it's a Star Wars channel. We can play Star Wars games anytime you like. So with all that said, let me pass this subject off to you. What are some Star Wars board games that you like to play? Are you still more of a console gamer, or have you indulged in tabletop gaming? If you're a Legion or Imperial Assault or even Armada player, I'd be very interested to find out what kind of army you field. Like, do you play the good guys? Do you play the bad guys? Because they've always got the coolest ships. I'm pretty much exclusively a bad guy player. I'll always play as the Empire. I'll always play as the Confederacy. I'll always play with the really, really cool stuff. So yeah, let me know down in the comments below and I will get back to each and every one of you. I always enjoy hearing from the audience. It's so much fun. It's always really interesting to get to know who's watching the channel and what they enjoy. And of course, the big question, would you be interested in seeing this kind of content on the channel? If we can really nail down a format that works, because I feel like one of the biggest downfalls of a lot of tabletop gaming channels is the format. Like, either the videos are just so long, or I was watching one the other day and it was just kind of like the game itself was incredible. It was like a large-scale Legion game, but the commentary wasn't working for me. It didn't feel very immersive or dynamic. So yeah, any tips you might have for that kind of thing? What do you want to see? Like, how do you want us to do it? Let me know and I'll pass it on to the boss and see what we can do. Next week we will be returning to the Wishlist series with a special top 10 edition of Wishlist, because we're going to be talking about Star Wars Resistance, a show that has practically no representation in the Black Series, and I can't wrap my head around why, because there are some great looking characters. It's got a couple in there, like Commander Pyre's in there, and I think you can get CB23, but she's kind of blocked behind a paywall because you have to go and get a Disney Parks exclusive to get her, but we need more of these characters in the Black Series, so it made this list really, really easy to put together. In the meantime, however, I've been Grand Moff Tony. Those were some of my favourite Star Wars board games. You may subscribe when ready. Bollocks, what's that bloody game called?